Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of BTTH Rebirth of Emperor Yang episode number 65 based on novel. So let's start. Tianjue Steppe has three major realms, including Wind, Lingyun, and Yakong. The three realms are divided into 9 small realms, each of which is Entry, Xiaocheng, and Dacheng. Today, Xiao Yan's practice in Tianjue Steppe has gone from the beginning to a small success in the Wind realm. Speaking of this, the total time spent during this period is only a few months. With the slow improvement of Tianjue Steppe, Xiao Yan's speed once made him walk freely among the strong half-emperors, but being in the half-emperors was like stepping into a state of no one. However, with the passage of time, the strong half-emperor faced by Xiao Yan is no longer so easy to deal with. After some 7-star half-emperor body fighting skills are displayed, their speed is no worse than Xiao Yang. Even in the face of an 8-star and a half-emperor like Hu Leoge, Xiao Yang has been struggling and is no longer as comfortable as before. Xiao Yang is not surprised at this. His strength comes from fighting skills, and those semi-imperial strong men with 7 stars and 8 stars also have all kinds of good fighting skills. With all their strength, Xiao Yang is naturally difficult to deal with. The world is fair. It's impossible that only Xiao Yang can get high-level fighting skills. It's powerful. It's not someone's patent. Everything needs someone to fight for. Unknowingly, Xiao Yang has set up a void challenge arena over the wild ancient city for 3 days. In the 3 days, there are too many people challenging Xiao Yang. In just 3 days, Xiao Yang has successively fought dozens of battles, and the 7-star and half-emperor strong ones account for the vast majority. There is no way. The temptation given by Xiao Yang is really eye-catching. It is the most eye-catching thing in the wilderness. As long as someone gets it, he will try to hide it in order to prevent endless trouble. On the contrary, Xiao Yang did the opposite. Instead of hiding, he swaggered out what was enough to make everyone jealous in public. It seemed to be a deliberate intention to make mistakes. All the people who heard the news were crazy about the requirement of fighting hundreds of moves. As long as you can hurt Xiao Yang within 100 moves, you can get a Void Thunder Pool post. This temptation is like a hot beauty deliberately seducing men. These crazy guys for strength will naturally jump on it. It's like the Void Thunder Pool post is already in the bag. I just don't know whether their action is to find out what they have in their pockets or to put moths into the fire. In 3 days, Xiao Yang almost fought all the 7 stars and half-emperors in the whole wild ancient city. This is a very energy-consuming and morale-fighting thing. Fortunately, Xiao Yang's soul power entered the empire in the later stage, coupled with the identity of the second-order herbalist. Whether it is morale-fighting or soul power, Xiao Yang's consumption can always recover as soon as possible in the shortest time, and his battles are continuous. Of course, there are many people engaged in the war, but since Xiao Yang can survive dozens of battles and preserve the Void Thunder Pool, this shows that no one can really hurt Xiao Yang in the 3-day battle. Xiao Yang, however, is constantly making profits from it. Fighting again and again not only makes Xiao Yang gain a lot, but also makes his control over Tianjue more handy. As long as the mind moves, Xiao Yang can flash on the void at will. In an instant, Xiao Yang can flash on the void for 5 times and return to the original position, and leave clear and solid shadows in those flashed positions. To the outside world, it seems that 5 Xiao Yang suddenly appeared in the void, and 4 of them turned into a distorted shadow and gradually dissipated on the void after a gust of breeze. Until this time, all the people could understand that the 4 Xiao Yang suddenly appeared were residual shadows, and it was no wonder Xiao Yang dared to boast in public if he could have such a terrible speed. However, even so, the battle continues. The attraction of Void Thunder Pool posts seems to be huge. Even among those who challenge Xiao Yang, there are many people who know Xiao Yang's strength. They know that his speed is terrible and know that there is little chance that they can hurt Xiao Yang, but they are still willing to try. Perhaps, I just met the moment when Xiao Yang was not in the state. Maybe I can have the opportunity to hurt Xiao Yang without killing. It's enough to ask to hurt Xiao Yang. But unfortunately, the moment when Xiao Yang, who was full of expectations, was not in his state, had never come after all. As for attacking Xiao Yang, it is even more impractical. Not to mention that there is a deep gap between them. For Xiao Yang alone, his puppet is strong enough to resist most of them. In the face of the North King, none of them is willing to fight alone. What's more, standing behind Xiao Yang are the 2 largest forces in the wild ancient city, the Herbalist Guild and Union Pavilion. Naturally, these people will not be foolish enough to become enemies with Union Pavilion. In a few days, Xiao Yang has harvested more than 1 million spiritual coins. Such a number is extremely terrible among the semi-emperor strong. Among these, what surprises Xiao Yang most is that among those people, there are guys who take lei tai as a bet, which also makes Xiao Yang add 3 lei posts to his wealth in these 3 days. In other words, Xiao Yang now has 4 other thunder posts after removing his own one, but only 30 people can enter the void thunder pool. Now, a total of 30 empty thunder pool posts, 1/6 of which fell into Xiao Yang's hands. It's hard to imagine what kind of scene Xiao Yang would face if those people in the city learned the news. However, fortunately, on the 4th day, Xiao Yang's Tianjueba finally ushered in the long-awaited breakthrough again. Tianjuebu moves the whole territory smoothly from a small state to a big one, which means that Xiao Yang's speed will soar again. At the same time of the breakthrough, Xiao Yang showed the people his changes after the breakthrough. When Tianzibu asked Xiao Yang to face the 7-star-and-half emperor, he had no more worries in his heart. Even Xiao Yang took off all the robes of the 7-star-and-half emperor in front of everyone, which also made the latter angry with Xiao Yang. If it weren't for his strength, Xiao Yang would have been dismembered by the other party. The speed of the 7-star-and-half emperor. In front of Xiao Yang, every action is enough for Xiao Yang to repeat once. At this speed, the 8-star-and-half emperor once, Xiao Yang is enough to abuse anyone. When the 5th day passed, the smile on Xiao Yang's face was more brilliant, because until this time, there were 2 more empty thunder pool posts in his hands. That is to say, now Xiao Yang has a total of 7 empty thunder pool posts in his hand. 7, which was enough to make the whole wild ancient city boil in a moment, but Xiao Yang collected all of them, and his face was calm, as if he had never taken the extra thunder post, but in Xiao Yang's heart, he was already full of excited smiles. 7 empty thunder pool posts will be another great wealth for Xiao Yang. The 5-day time flows quietly. For most semi-imperialist strongmen, this time simply passes in the blink of an eye, while for some semi-imperialist strongmen, these 5 days are more like a chase race. However, at the end of the chase, all the semi-imperialists who participated did not get any benefits from it, and all the final benefits were pocketed by the sponsors of the competition. 7 empty thunder pool stickers, millions of spirit coins, and Tianjue step into the wind. Each of these is Xiao Yang's benefit in just 5 days. As for others, don't say they get benefits and don't lose too much. They have high incense in their hearts. Who would have thought that when these semi-imperialist strong men really face a seemingly simple challenge, even if their fighting spirit is strong and terrible, in the end, it is still powerful and nowhere to use. After 100 moves, they have to return angrily. Above the void, Xiao Yang smiled and accepted the gambling income handed over by the last opponent. Looking at the depressed look on the other party's face, Xiao Yang couldn't help laughing, but he still looked very indifferent. Rock Owl, you really haven't wasted these 5 days. With the benefits you've earned from us in these 5 days, I'm afraid it's more than some family forces earn in a year. At this time, someone finally scolded Xiao Yang angrily. Xiao Yang would be crazy about the profits he had made in the past 5 days. With the exit of the semi-emperor strong man, all the semi-emperor strong men behind him angrily denounced Xiao Yang. These people were the opponents Xiao Yang met these days. They had suffered a loss in Xiao Yang's hand. At the moment, they were merciless. Xiao Yang sneered at this. He didn't force these people to fight with him or rob their things. Those bets were entirely taken by themselves. If they didn't have confidence in their strength, they wouldn't easily take a shot at Xiao Yang. Now they don't have the ability to get the empty thunder pool post, but they blame Xiao Yang in turn. No wonder Xiao Yang disdains to make a sound. The Rock Owl has gained a lot of benefits for 5 consecutive days, and during that time, he has received several empty thunder pool posts. In my opinion, we might as well take down the Rock Owl together. Anyway, he has a lot of treasures now. As long as he opens his ring, we won't be afraid that there won't be enough for us to share. Seeing the disdain sneer on Xiao Yang's face, someone in the crowd suddenly spoke again. The meaning of the words pushed Xiao Yang to the forefront of the storm, just like a meaning of retaliation. With the voice falling down, everyone looked at Xiao Yang together. For a few days, they witnessed the scenes in which Xiao Yang defeated his opponent again and again. They also saw that Xiao Yang put all his bets into the Naji in his hand, plus those empty thunder pool posts. With these things, they could make a lot of money. At present, the eyes of everyone looked at Xiao Yang. It can't help changing. Why, you're inferior to others. You've lost everything. Now you're going to blame me for all the reasons. You want to divide up my Naji. You're really bold. As soon as the voice fell, Xiao Yang suddenly drank fiercely, and the momentum in his body burst out instantly. A circle of invisible fighting pressure also swept rapidly towards the 4 directions. Xiao Yan knew that these semi-imperialist strong men in front of him were difficult to deal with. He was really not an opponent by his own strength. Therefore, when he released all his momentum in his body, while the faces of the semi-imperialist strong men changed slightly, Xiao Yanmeng's big sleeve waved and the black light flashed, and the North King flashed like a hill. The strength of the 6-star and half-emperors and the domineering atmosphere of the whole body make the strong half-emperors withdraw one step back one after another. On the other side, Jiyu Li and Shenlao also frowned. Unexpectedly, these guys would jump over the wall in a hurry. Knowing what to do, Xiao Yang gathered together to force Xiao Yang to hand over the Void Thunder Pool post. But how can Xiao Yang be the lord who can be coerced by others? The more these guys oppress him, the more domineering Xiao Yang is. There are a large number of people. For ordinary people, it will really make them afraid and have to obey, but Xiao Yang is different. He always eats soft rather than hard. The more these people are like this, the final result will not be better. Jiyu Li looked at each other and nodded slightly. Jiyu Li and Li need not say more. Xiao Yang, as the chief herbalist of the Herbalist Guild, naturally can't sit idly by, and Shenlao is a pro-faction of Luo Jin. He only wants to protect Xiao Yang as the cloud-hidden pavilion when necessary. Now that it's over, he naturally wants to do it. Immediately, while the North King appeared, the 3 men also set off together. The 3 8-star and half-emperors flashed together and blocked Xiao Yang's body in an instant. The momentum of the 8-star and half-emperor spread out in an instant. The strong and domineering atmosphere was more powerful than that of the North King. As soon as the semi-imperial strong men came into contact with these terrible smells, their faces immediately became dignified. Xiao Yang alone had given them a headache. At present, coupled with Bei Wang and Jiyu Li, they naturally didn't dare to do it easily. Although they didn't dare to do it easily, after all, they had many people and were unwilling to give up on the Void Lei Kai post. The 2 forces stood in the void like this, and no one did anything. For a time, a group and a half of the strong emperors on the void also confronted each other with Xiao Yang. Neither side was willing to let go, but no one took a half step forward. I don't know how long later, Xiao Yang, as the only one who can change the situation in the field, finally smiled and read a move, and the scattered momentum was taken back in an instant. He looked at the half-strong emperor calmly. The other party also looked at Xiao Yang at this moment. Xiao Yang moved slowly to the front of several people, glanced at the people, smiled and said, "It seems that you have not wavered in your mind about this void minefield post. Oh, I have to praise you. It's really perseverance." When the words came out, the strong half-emperors also frowned and looked at each other. One of the 7-star half-emperors looked at Xiao Yang coldly and said, Rock Owl, you'd better hand in the Void Thunder Pool post as soon as possible. We can let you take the rest, but if you are stubborn, I promise you won't get anything." "Oh, really, why didn't you do it just now?" Xiao Yang sneered and asked a question with disdain on his face. Xiao Yang's words also made the 7-star and a half-emperor suddenly speechless. An old face showed an embarrassed look. They were not unwilling to start. It was the strong people around Xiao Yang who made them afraid and difficult to start. Otherwise, they would have risen up and attacked Xiao Yang long ago. Xiao Yang sneered again, staring coldly at the 7-star and a half-emperor and said with a sneer, "The next time you talk, you must think about it, otherwise it's easy to eat." As soon as he spoke, Jiyu Li, the 3 people beside Xiao Yang, immediately laughed and laughed. Without waiting for the semi-emperor strong man to retort, Xiao Yang spoke again. "Everyone, I know that if you continue to confront like this, no one will get the empty minefield post in my hand. Even if one of you can get it in the end, it is bound to be the most powerful talents who have the opportunity. This is too unfair for other people who contribute. So, I have a way to give you a chance to get the void minefield post. Explain in advance. This time, you don't have to fight again." As soon as Xiao Yang's voice fell, everyone in the field immediately became boiling. Although Xiao Yang's meaning was unknown, the meaning in his words was quite in line with their wishes. As Xiao Yang said, among them, even if they fight Xiao Yang and get Xiao Yang's punishment, they are only a few people who can finally get benefits, and most of them are thankless people. Not for others, just because of strength. At present, Xiao Yang even said such exciting words again, and some changes will naturally take place in their hearts. They came for the Void Thunder Pool post. If Xiao Yang's method can give everyone a chance to get the Thunder post, it doesn't matter whether they rob or not. Anyway, they may not get the Thunder post. In that case, it's better to see what Xiao Yang's method is. Noticing the people's eyes full of sigh, Xiao Yang smiled again, rubbed Naji with his fingers, and thought about something in his heart. Ladies and gentlemen, since everyone wants to get the thunder posts in my hand, but the number of thunder posts is limited and it is difficult to allocate, in order to give everyone present a chance to get the empty thunder pool posts, as the owner of thunder posts, I have made a decision. Xiao Yang looked around and his bright eyes slowly swept over those semi-imperialist strong men. Xiao Yang's words also made them focus on the former. Although they didn't know what the decision Xiao Yang said, they knew that Xiao Yang would tell them personally. Xiao Yang sighed, Jiu Li. Three people looked at each other, and the momentum released was also quietly taken back, but their eyes were still cautiously looking around. Xiao Yang can lay down his heart to face these semi-emperors, but they have to be cautious again and again. A moment later, Xiao Yang smiled at the corners of his mouth, glanced across the audience again, opened his arms, and successfully focused the eyes of all the people present again. Then, he opened his mouth slowly and said with a smile, 10 days later, I will auction the thunder posts and some natural materials and earth treasures in my hand in the form of auction. At the meeting, I will give them to him in the most rigorous way, and no third person will know. Xiao Yang's voice was like thunder. It swayed between heaven and earth. Everyone heard a burst of brain buzzing, but more of them still mocked and sneered at Xiao Yang's means. The things obtained from them should now be auctioned in front of their strong ones. I'm afraid no matter who sees them, they will be very angry. Xiao Yang did not shy away from it. No matter how angry those semi-emperors were, he was plain on his face. Among the things he wants to auction, there are indeed many bets that these guys lost to him, but at the same time, there are also some gains of Xiao Yang in previous wars. Xiao Yang can't imagine the consequences of the anger of all the emperors, so he won't go too far this time. Of course, although angry, there are some pleasing people in these people. These people are basically people who have never started with Xiao Yang. Therefore, they don't care about anything else Xiao Yang auctions except the Void Thunder Pool post. Seeing this situation in the field, Jiu Li and the three couldn't help but frown and look at Xiao Yang, the result of causing public anger. Xiao Yang should know better than them, but now his actions are developing in this direction. If Xiao Yang really annoys these guys, even if he has the support of the Herbalist Guild and Union Pavilion, he will never resist the killing heart of these people. After all, there are dozens of semi-imperialist strong men here. It's just normal. It's easy to deal with them for their own camp, but once they are united, the power will be devastating. Xiao Yang noticed Jiu Li's eyes, but with a faint smile, smiled and nodded, indicating that they were at ease. With their inexplicable confidence in Xiao Yang, the three took back their eyes, but they were still worried. Ha ha. It's too early for you to say anything. As for what I will auction, as long as you can be there, you will naturally know. And now? Well, I haven't had a rest for 5 days, and I'm a little tired. I won't accompany you first. I'll see you at Tianyun Auction House in 10 days. Speaking, Xiao Yang stretched a lazy waist with all his strength, and suddenly his whole body revealed a tired breath. But without waiting for the people to say anything, Xiao Yang suddenly flashed in his eyes, his feet moved slightly, the wind was blowing at his feet, his body flashed, and suddenly disappeared in the void. At the same time, there was the North King who had been standing still like an iron tower. Until Xiao Yang's body flickered and disappeared, Jiu Li and the three hurried to look for the wind and explore Xiao Yang's breath. But what shocked the three people was that as Xiao Yang disappeared again, his breath also completely dissipated in this void. This boy. He hasn't talked to him yet. Why is he missing again? Jiu Li's old face was helpless. The red phosphorus and Shenlao on one side also frowned. They also felt extremely dignified about Xiao Yang's terrible speed. At present, Xiao Yang's apparent strength is still 3-star and half emperor, but the speed is already so terrible that it's hard to imagine. If his strength goes further, the speed will be fully open at that time. Can't even the 8-star and half emperor strong people like them be completely ignored? At this moment, the 3 8.5 emperors are deeply shocked by Xiao Yang's strength. However, while they compare Xiao Yang with 8.5 emperors in their hearts, they don't know that there are more than 1 8.5 emperors who died in Xiao Yang's hands. Alas. Okay, the rock owl has left, and we don't need to stay here anymore. You too, there are still affairs in my pavilion, so we won't bother anymore. Xiao Yang left. After a burst of emotion, Shenlao also said a word to Jiu Li and left first. Later, Jiu Li and the semi-emperor strong onlookers also left one after another. When the crowd dispersed, in a short moment, another news that shocked everyone also quickly spread throughout the wild ancient city like wings. 10 days later, The Rock Owl will hold a Lei Tai auction at Tianyun Auction House. The public auction of empty thunder pool posts is unprecedented. Therefore, once the news spread, all forces in the whole wilderness moved one after another. However, in half a day, not only the whole wilderness ancient city, but also some surrounding towns heard the shocking news. In the cloud-hidden pavilion, a mysterious old man personally delivered the news. Luo Jin was naturally clear about what Xiao Yang said. Oh, is he going to hold an auction? Or at Tianyun Auction House? Luo Jin was surprised when he heard Xuanlao's words, but he nodded with a smile, gently waved the jade fan in his palm and said with a smile, "Okay, since he wants to hold an auction, we'll help him again to ensure that the order of the auction is well done at that time. In this way, we can help him solve some unnecessary problems more or less." Hearing the speech, Shenlaro nodded immediately, looked up at Luo Jin and said with a smile, "Hehe, I've arranged it as ordered by the young lord. There is Laro Song's management at the auction house. I think no one dares to do it there. At that time, he will take care of all the order at the venue." At the smell of the speech, Luo Jin slightly raised his eyebrows. When he heard Shenlaro say about the old man, he finally remembered him. Thinking of the old man's temper in his heart, Luo Jin couldn't help smiling and shaking his head. With him, it's true that few people dared to move any thoughts in the auction house. Although everything is ready, let Song Gang pay attention. The Moby Group will never give up on the Rock Owls. This auction will have a great impact. They will inevitably make some moves. If you see them at that time, you must keep an eye on them. Although Luo Jin has always been quite relieved about Xuanlao's work, Luo Jin still doesn't dare to be careless about Xiao Yang. He feels that Xiao Yang's action this time is indeed a little big. No one knows what kind of people he will attract at that time. When Shenlaro heard the speech, he couldn't help a look of surprise in his turbid old eyes. Then he answered, and he no longer bothered Luo Jin. He silently withdrew 2 steps backward. The figure under Xuanlao's robe gradually twisted until it disappeared completely. What are you talking about? The Rock Owl is going to hold an auction in 10 days. And the auction items are still empty thunder pool posts. In a living room, Mu Han was sitting on the main seat with a gloomy face. The glittering and translucent teacup in his hand was crushed into a powder with one hand because of his anger. The tea was shot everywhere like a water arrow. All the ornaments around Mu Han were pierced by the water arrows. Seeing this scene, the 4 people of Mojai sitting below suddenly coagulated in their hearts. They didn't expect that the news brought back by the waiter of Mu Zhuang would shock them so much. Now Mu Han and Mojai have reached a common point. In order to kill Xiao Yang, this group of people have set foot on the same boat, and the purpose is only for Xiao Yang. With the initial plan of several people, the 4 people of Mojai naturally lived in Muzhuang. Here, it is difficult for outsiders to know their specific whereabouts, and they can use Muzhuang to monitor Xiao Yang all the time. At this moment, in front of Mu Han, a middle-aged man in cloth is half kneeling on the ground, reporting all the news he heard from the outside respectfully to Mu Han. In today's wild ancient city, Xiao Yang's reputation is becoming more and more popular day by day. The recent news is that Xiao Yang said that he would hold a Lei Tai auction at Tianyun Auction House in 10 days. This news is very shocking news for the major family forces in the wild ancient city. It is difficult to open the void mine pit, and as the only key to enter the mine pit, the total number of thunder posts is only 30. For hundreds of years, in order to compete for this void thunder pool post, I don't know how many bloody storms have been caused, and countless semi-emperor strong people have been crazy about it, but that's the case, and no one has ever been able to master more than 3 thunder posts. Because of the attraction of Lei Tai, it will bring them devastating damage. For hundreds of years, there are not a few semi-imperial strong men who have died fighting for the void Lei Kai posts. Therefore, usually, as long as you can get a thunder post, almost everyone will carefully keep it. No one will know who holds the thunder post until the day when the thunder pool is opened. Now, Xiao Yang is so retrograde. He not only acts domineering and high, but also grasps several empty thunder pool posts under the eyes of countless strong people. This is to ignite the upper body, but when many people want to sit on the mountain and watch the tiger and wait for someone to find Xiao Yang, the whole wilderness is surprisingly calm. Those people seem to be indifferent to the Lei Tai in Xiao Yang's hand. It's not that they are not interested, but everyone knows that it's difficult to win the void thunder pool post from him, not to mention the ordinary half-emperor, by the means of Xiao Yang now, even if the 8-star half-emperor goes to him. Rather than find Xiao Yang to humiliate himself, it's better to wait quietly and wait for the auction, Xiao Yang said. At present, I'm afraid this is the only way to give them a chance to get Lei Tai. Bang! With a violent bang, Mu Han sat down in the hall, and the Shenjin handrail on one side suddenly burst, and his dry palm was deeply embedded in it. Under his command, the black gold, which looked extremely hard in ordinary times, was as unbearable as a piece of soil. Bastard! That boy's life is booming. Don't those family members want his Lei Tai? Mu Han's old face looked as gloomy as water at the moment, and the anger in his eyes was almost gushing out. The palm embedded in the armrest grabbed it angrily, and the hard Shen gold was pinched into pieces like tofu. Seeing that the man who killed his disciple was so stable, Mu Han's anger was almost uncontrollable. Wu Mohui is not only his disciple, but also the grandson of his old friend who has passed away. Because of the relationship with that old friend, Mu Han loves him very much. The latter also has great talent in array. Therefore, he attaches great importance to Wu Mohui. Now Wu Mohui is dead. Mu Han has not only lost a gifted disciple, but also can't explain in his heart in the face of his dead old friend. But now, knowing that the person who killed Wu Mohui was Xiao Yang, he could only watch Xiao Yang call the wind and rain in this wild ancient city all day. The anger and killing intention in Mu Han's heart reached the extreme. Rock Owl. Rock Owl. If I don't kill you, I can't face my old friend, let alone my disciple killed by you. Mohui. Mu Han's eyes are scarlet, a pair of deep concave old eyes. Because of the extreme anger in his heart, his eyes are very prominent at the moment. Coupled with the scarlet blood color, people feel chilly at a glance. Hearing the voice of Mu Hanbing's cold words on the seat, Mo Zhai looked at each other imperceptibly, and they all had plans in their hearts. I really didn't expect that the Rock Owl would have such a means, but that's all. At that time, as long as he enters the void minefield and admires the teacher, we will naturally ask him to pay his due price. Mo Zhai's old eyes narrowed slightly, and the cold light in his eyes flickered. When he thought of Xiao Yang, his heart was gnashing teeth. Fortunately, Yang Bing was beside him now, and Mo Zhai also had a feeling of potential in his heart. It was like that although Xiao Yang was still alive, he was no different from the dead in Mo Zhai's heart. If Luo Laro wasn't there, even if the Lord of Union Pavilion protected him himself, I would kill him in the wilderness. Facing the flattery in Mo Zhai's words, Mu Han naturally knew it and forced his anger down. Mu Han narrowed his eyes slightly and said in a low voice. Yang Bing looked at each other and remained silent. No one knew how to understand the two people's dialogue in his heart. But when Mo Zhai kept flattering Mu Han and wanted to deepen the relationship between the two sides, Mu Han turned his eyes and suddenly showed a mysterious expression of smiling rather than smiling at the corners of his mouth. When he looked at Mo Zhai's eyes, he showed a biting look. Hiss. Gaga, Gaga, I almost forgot to kill the Rock Owl, but I still need one thing. Huh. As soon as Mu Han said this, Mo Zhai's pupils suddenly coagulated. Yang Bing, the three people sitting beside him, couldn't help but pick their eyebrows and felt quite surprised in their hearts. With the strength of Mu Han's 9-star and half-emperor, it would be effortless to kill Xiao Yang, but now at such a time, how can he say that he is short of one thing? Is Mu Han not confident that he can kill Xiao Yang? Master Mu, you. Gaga, Gaga. Mo Zhai, I'm afraid you forget or ignore a very important thing. Mo Zhai wanted to ask, but Mu Han stared at Mo Zhai with a smile, his eyes narrowed falsely, and said jokingly. So, Mo Zhai was even more confused. He looked at Yang Bing again, but they were all confused. Now they have everything ready. They only owe the east wind. They just wait for the thunder pool to open and enter the empty thunder pool. At that time, Xiao Yang's death will come. No matter what they think, there is no key point missing in it. It's a void minefield post. After a long time, Yang Bing seemed to suddenly think of something, and said indifferently to Mu Han. As a 9-star and a half-emperor, Mu Han can hardly rely on foreign objects for the improvement of his own strength. Therefore, he has not touched this kind of thing for a long time. Now he is about to enter the void thunder pool again. That's all he needs. Gaga, Gaga. Yes, I haven't entered the void thunder pool for hundreds of years. I've almost forgotten the appearance of the void thunder pool post. Therefore, as long as Mo Zhai can find the void thunder pool post for me, I can enter the void thunder pool. Hearing this, Mo Zhai immediately frowned, and there were few empty thunder pool posts. At the beginning, Mo Zhai paid a high price to help Zhong Hao get thunder posts. Nowadays, the person who can control is not the head of all forces. Even if he is Mo Zhai, he can't easily make friends with each other. In this situation, where can he find the empty thunder pool posts? Mu Han's move is deliberately difficult. But soon, Mo Zhai thought of the only source where he could get Lei Tai, but if so, Mu Han, you are deliberately embarrassing me. Now, the only place where he can get the empty Thunder Pool post for Mu Han is the Thunder Post auction to be held by Tianyun Auction House and Rock Owl 10 days later. This video will end here.